a year old, right? She ain't even a year old yet.
Yeah, man. She's about, gosh, about 7 months.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what did you
I'll try
do?
to see if I can find a little picture of her so you guys can check it out. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And so was the moment you knew she was coming, I know you have your family business meetings. What did you do to ensure her financial freedom as a family right then and there in that moment?
We started going, we're kind of Game of Thrones with it in our family, man. I ain't gonna lie, bro. We're like literally sitting around like, how is the House of Watkins gonna be remembered 1,000 years from now? You know,
Yeah.
everything's about legacy. That's all you got. Your life is short. You're gonna die
Yeah.
soon, and so all you got is your legacy. You got your insurance policies, your real estate, your life insurance, your estate plan, whatever it is you put in place. Your businesses, your ideas, your culture, whatever it is you pass to your children. That's what's gonna live far longer than you do. So my thought was, I said, man, I started thinking, gosh, I don't like, getting older is kind of sad in a way. If you look at it a certain way where you're like, man, I'm getting closer to the end, and it's very quick. 1 minute you're 20, next minute you're 30, then you're 40. You're like, what the hell's happening here?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I looked at my little niece and I was thinking, gosh, this child has a good chance to be around in the year 2100. And I started
Mm.
to kind of envy that. And I remember thinking, man, I would love to be there around in 2100. I'd love to see it. But I was like, I'm not going to. She is.
Right.
And then by that time, she'll have children and grandchildren and all that. So I said, what can I do that will allow us to really have that impact, that we really want to have in our lives and do something really important. So we started talking about her before she was born. We started talking, we started visualizing. It's a spiritual exercise almost, where I visualize, her as a grown woman. I visualize her coming graduate from college. I visualize her getting married. I visualize her looking at her picture of Uncle Boyce on the wall and saying, Uncle Boyce, this is my uncle. Wait, from way back in 2019, he used to, back in the day, he used to get on the internet and he said did that and did that, and that really, kind of affected me in the sense that I thought about then, just from a mathematical standpoint, very basic little things that you can do.
Right.
Where you can really, really rock somebody's world 30 years from today by doing basic things right now. Like, it's very, very hard for a person to change what's happening in 2019, on a massive scale. It's very, very hard. For example, it's very, very hard for you.
Right.
It's very, very hard to make your kids rich by next year, right?
Yeah.
Very, but it's easy as hell to make your kids extremely wealthy 30 years from now, because you
Yeah.
have a ton of time to do it.
Yeah.
So that's really what we started doing. So we have trust. We in my will, I was very specific about exactly where my money would go, how it would grow until she was ready, making sure that she did not even know that the money's there,
Mm.
and thinking about specific ways that the money can be applied where it could grow, and also make sure that she doesn't have anything to worry about later on down the line. So those are kind of the conversations we had.
Yeah. So same thing for Jada. So right now, what I'm doing is I'm actually setting up well, I have life insurance on me. And I'm making sure that my family is set and that death benefit will be passed on to them if something were to happen to me sooner or something would happen to me later. But one of the things that kicked into gear for me, so I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and when I was in college, and I knew straight off the bat that I was not buying a single family home first. A lot of people say that a single family home is an asset. At the very best, it's a savings account. It's not really an asset. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket, and there's actually no point that a single family home puts money into your pocket unless you sell it or you take out a HELOC, which you have to borrow against the home, right? Even after you paid off the mortgage after 30 years, you still have to pay property taxes and insurance on that home, plus maintenance on a 30-year-old home. So a single family home, while it's touted as this asset, not every home appreciates. And it also depends on when you actually want to sell it, if you ever do decide to sell it. And so I knew I wasn't buying a single family home out the gates. And so my first acquisition of real estate was, I think it was 6 years ago. I think I was 30 years old. It was a three-family home in Brooklyn. That house has appreciated, and it also cash flows. So for me, when I buy real estate, I buy for cash flow and appreciation. If that occurs, then that's just icing on the cake for me. But 2 years ago, when I hit the 35 mark, I went pretty hard on real estate, and I actually bought three homes that year, three duplexes. And for me, that was significant in relationship to the 65 retirement mark. I don't plan on retiring. I love the work that I do. I'm gonna do this till the day I die, right? And so, but at if I bought those homes at 35, then what's going to happen at 65? Those mortgages are going to be done unless I pay them off early. And so now that's just going to be cash flowing property that I now get to hand to my daughter and say, this is yours. And so at the age when I'm 65, whether I need that for retirement or I die and I get to pass that on, she's literally going to have $10,000 in cash flow that is happening indefinitely for year every single month. Like, because of the decisions that I made when I was 35, she will have $10,000 coming into her family every single month for the rest of her life. And she'll be able to pass that on, as long as the properties are kept, she'll be able to pass that on indefinitely. Like, if we're really talking about generational wealth, it can't be about the highest salary. I really believe that this kind of passive income is really a key, because let's say you start with you got $10 of passive income today, and then 5 months from now it's $50 of passive income a month, and then another 3 months, and now that's $150 of passive income. If we just focus on growing our passive income in any way that we possibly could, real estate as being the most predictable way of doing it that I know of, when we're thinking about generations, I'm passing my daughter cash flow. Not cash flow, meaning that she doesn't have to do anything. I could leave her a big pile, but that pile could deplete. But cash flow is never going to deplete unless she does something to mess up the asset itself.
Yeah, well, I think about income. Income is really something. It's like getting apples off an apple tree, right?
Yeah.
You can't have apples without the tree. And the problem that for Black people is that we need the apples, but white people own all the trees. And what we have to do with our children is we must train them to take the apples they have and plant apple seeds.
Yes.
Because then you have trees, and with those trees you can get all the apples that you need, and it creates a more fulfilling and secure environment under which you can survive economically. Because you're not having to go around with your basket begging other people to give you apples off of their tree.
Right.
So what we got to do is really think about, the Black community's economic landscape almost like just a bunch of really fertile land, thousands of acres of really fertile land. And we got to go in this generation just planting a whole lot of seeds, so that we can harvest something off this land. And so same thing. So the analogy is with the businesses, we're going in and we're just starting these businesses. And at the same time, while we're planting the seeds and trying to grow something out of the land, we got to learn how to be better farmers. If you're not a good farmer, you can have the best land, but you're not going to get anything out of it. So by being better farmers, meaning creating businesses that have better structure, just really shifting the economic landscape, shifting the culture. Culture is very important. Today with Dr. Claude Anderson, we talked about a code of conduct. There must be a code of economic conduct in every family in order for that family to grow economically. Because if you don't have a code of conduct, what you have is you have people doing whatever they want, acting however they want. Like for example, when I have a lecture where I train students how to build your own family bank, which is what that looks like, right? And I said, look, it ain't gonna work if people don't operate in the code of conduct, because what happens, people will come to the bank whenever they have a financial problem and they won't pay you back. And so again, just making a funny joke about being Game of Thrones with it. One of the funny things about Game of Thrones, I don't know if anybody else watches that show or not, but some people think I'm really white for watching that show, but it's a great show. But it's really funny because they have this bank in the background. It's like all these people just fighting, having these wars, trying to get the throne. But the thing is, in the background, they have this company called the Iron Bank. And whenever they want to declare war or conquer new territory or build a new castle, they got to go to the Iron Bank. Yep. And what happens is everybody bows to the bank. Everybody's scared of the Iron Bank, right? And one of the conspiracy theories online is, what is it that this bank has that makes everybody afraid? The biggest, baddest kings are like bowing to the Iron Bank because they're afraid. And what it is that the banks have something where they're able to go and force you to maintain the code of conduct. Like, if we loan you this money, you're gonna pay it back, right? And just little things like that make a big difference, because if you have people that don't respect the code of conduct, what'll happen is you'll build a family bank and you'll get some resources. You loan them out to relatives, you end up broke. That's how a lot of athletes go broke. Loaning people money, they don't pay it back because there's no consequences for not paying it back. Well, if you have a code of conduct, then if you don't pay it back, my grandmother had a code of conduct. My grandma's rule was, I'll loan you money one time, and if you pay me back, I'll loan you money again. But if I loan you money, you do not pay me back, never ask me for money ever again. It could be 5 years later, she wouldn't loan you anything. So that's an example of a code of conduct.
Period. And for me, my policy for blood is I'll loan you money the first time. If you don't pay back on time, then don't ask me again. Not even if you don't pay me back. If you don't pay me back on time, then I'm not ever loaning you again. That's literally it. I mean, because I'm giving you a no interest loan. I could be making that money work in other ways. But my interest is actually love at that moment in time. But if you actually disrespect the agreement that we've made, then I can't function with you, and you've actually taken advantage of my love in that moment in time. Right. So that's how I think about it. But in terms of so for me, cash flowing real estate has been critical. And I think one of the big myths out there in terms of freedom is that you have to be a millionaire, that you have to like strike big, you got to win the lotto, you got to be CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And while that kind of revenue in terms of salary is great, and I encourage people to go get it, go secure the bag. In order to be free, the simple equation is look at your cost of living and actually see if you can actually create passive income that surpasses that. And so what's unique about Black people in terms of their ability to be free sooner is that we are actually able to be happy and comfortable off of less. And what I mean by that is that because of our economic situation, we are still able to find joy off of a household income of $4,000. We're still able to have joy. Most other cultures would actually kill themselves and jump off the bridge if they had $4,000 of revenue coming into the household. But yet we're still able to smile in the midst of poverty. And we have all the ingredients that are there because in Brooklyn, I have an Asian neighbor. She moved in the hood. She's the only Asian in like a 10-mile radius, literally. She moved in the hood. Her whole family, they moved into the same kind of building that we did. They're like 7 deep in there. It was me, my daughter, and my wife, right? They're 7 deep in there. Guess what they did? 2 years later, they had bought another one deeper in.